Hello and welcome to A Celtic World, the channel and podcast that brings Celtic fans both near and far away together under a single unifying banner. From Tobermory to Tehran, from Nairn to Nairobi, wherever you're watching from, you're part of A Celtic World. And we had just looking around at where the people are in this chat. I see one in Malaysia, one in Western Australia. But let's start with this new country that none of us have ever heard of.
Yeah, this
Mordovia.
is Moldova. And this is the independent state of Moldova here in Ibrox. This is where the Mordors, this is where all the Sefcovians live. So just me here, the one solo guy, here.
So familiar faces all around. We also have David in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. How's it going, David?
I'm going really well. I'm going to say to Monty, thanks for actually calling us out by name in the comments there and saying hi to all of us. That was very good of you to spend the time to actually type that out. And I've actually been, so I've only just came back to the show, but I've been watching and joining in, watching all of the comments, and we've got a magically group of people, have we not? And some few characters in there. I don't want to go into that much, but I'd rather be here. I think it's safer here.
Brilliant. And in Western Australia, the familiar face of Paul. How goes it?
Yeah, good. I've had a bit of a pretty random day. Basically partnered with Aston Martin with work today. Took a few clients out to drive a few luxury sports cars. So I was behind the wheel of a $600,000 car for 10-15 minutes in between clients driving them. So that was a bit of fun. But back to the day job tomorrow. But delighted to be here and chatting about all things Celtic ahead of another massive weekend.
It is a massive weekend. There's excitement in the air. In the description, I was talking about the atmosphere is going to be electric. And you can see some of that in the comments. Ouija boy, hail, hail, let's get this party started. Morning, fellow title hunter, says Monty. It's exciting, isn't it? Plunge McNugget, it says exactly that. Exciting games like this, as a Celtic supporter, are the games you look forward to. Quite right. Bring it on. Wow, everyone's up for it. Well,
I don't remember a game as large as this outside of a derby. You know what I mean? And not recent derbies, but back in the day, the old incarnation of Glasgow Rangers. Back in those days, I remember games in atmospheres like this, but outside of the derby, I never really remember any team bringing a game and being as challenging as what Hearts are going to be. And definitely feeling the excitement. It is palpable. Electric atmosphere. I can feel it building up already. Even the club tweeted out this morning and said, let's make some noise for the boys already. You know what I mean? The club knows. They expect what we expect. This will be one for the ages.
Well, I hope so. Let's concentrate on the here and now. This is what's on the agenda. First of all, we're going to run through a bunch of talking points, news and the like. Player chat, manager, things that have been going on. Second, pump these tarts. That, of course, just refers to achieving a significant victory against the jam tarts, the Hearts, nothing else. And finally, Celtic Social. So that's what it's all about. It's very much a preview show and a little catch-up in the news. Okay. So, talking points, what are we going to talk about? Well, I thought the first thing we'd talk about is Matt O'Reilly. He's been sort of in the news for a number of reasons. First of all, he's the only Celtic representative among the 4 nominees for Player of the Year, David, in the SPFL. What do you make of that lineup, and does he deserve his place?
I think he does. I think if we all talk about Matt O'Reilly, he was one of the players that we've talked about that we didn't want to lose. I think questionable around his more recent form, what impact he's had, but I still think for large parts of the season he carried us a lot. He was a kind of outstanding player for us. You know, when Kyogo disappeared for a while, we needed to rely on him. He played midfield roles. He played striking roles. So I think he definitely deserves his spot, and maybe we'll get our 15 million price tag for him.
Well, let's not sell him just yet. I hear a lot of people talking, Kaiser, about Joe Hart being Celtic's Player of the Year, which I don't agree with. I think it's definitely Matt O'Reilly. People forget how amazing he was. By a country mile, the best player in the country for ages. A good half of the season.
I think as a fan base, we're very reactive. Like, I see it, especially like right now with Liam Scales. People are very either yes for Liam Scales or no for Liam Scales. You can't be in the middle ground. Me personally, I think coming from where he came from, Aberdeen, appearing in the squad, everyone expected him to fail at every level, and at every level he succeeded, right up to Champions League level. And yeah, his form has dropped off and dipped off. Same with Matt O'Reilly at the start of the season, absolutely outstanding, pulling the strings in Champions League games, winning man of the match. So no wonder, European clubs are interested in him. I think 15 million is a very modest fee. See, considering he's going to be going as part of the Denmark setup, something that you almost missed out on because he's dipping form. We all seen it. We all seen it happen. As Gav says, he was talking about it recently. He's been on the news everywhere, talking about his life guru in India, transfer speculation, how he's banned any speak of it, you know what I mean? But I think Matt O'Reilly definitely should be a candidate for Player of the Year. Joe Hart more so in the last phase of the season. He's had like 8 or 9 games, the past 7 or 8 games, I would say. He really came into his own and really showed up, put in a performance, certainly since he announced that he would be hanging up the gloves at the end of this season. Would I really say that merits an application for Player of the Season? Well, no, not really. I'm more along the lines with Gav. I wouldn't really think Joe Hart earned it.
Yeah, I mean, Ouija Boy's right. If it wasn't for Joe Hart, we wouldn't be in this title race. He's been good this season. He's definitely been good. For me, there's 3 players that will have done more to merit that league winner's badge medal if they get it. And that's Hart, Scales, and O'Reilly. No, nobody will have done more than they throughout the course of the season, if you ask me. I'm sure Paul's going to disagree. Here we go.
Well, I'm not going to disagree. I think what I'm going to say is I'm going to caveat that and say that's because they are the 3 that have probably stayed fit for the longest all season. It sort of speaks to how bad our injury list has been this season, that your big players that you would expect to be, Kyogo, CCV, Hatate, we've been without those guys for a long time. So that's why there's not a huge list of candidates for Player of the Year like there might typically be. So I wouldn't actually disagree that those players have probably earned it a little bit more, but they've played more games than anyone else. So purely on the availability and fitness, they would probably justify that. But I'm not really too surprised with the list. Taffpen's always going to be on there, isn't he? Shanklin's had a decent season, and Butland's basically been their best player. So when they're deep in a title battle and their goalkeeper's been their best player all season, I think it tells you a little bit about how they've done. And realistically, even if you thought Joe Hart was our best player over the course of the season, I agree with you, Gav. I don't think he is. He's probably next to best after Matt O'Reilly. I can't remember the last time they put 2 goalkeepers on a Player of the Year list. So it's always going to be the other lots dude first. So yeah, I think it's kind of as expected. No controversy from me today, Gav. I'm in agreement.
Well, I would say we're a sentimental old bunch generally, Celtic fans, none more so than David. And I think maybe that's where some of the Joe Hart misty-eyed sentiment is coming from.
There's recency bias in that as well.
But also, there's recency bias, and he's about to leave us, and hasn't he been great? Let's give him an award.
Yeah, I think it is that sentimentality, and I think actually for his recent performances in some of the games that he's kept us in, he actually deserves it a bit. And one of the things that we had to mention in our arguments early on in the season and the show was how he just wasn't the goalkeeping answer to us, and that was a repeated message every week, and that has tailed off because I think he has actually shown a great deal of increased confidence and in himself and his own sort of ability to bring the team forward, and has kept us in this league, I think, for sure, or one of the players. I think one of the things that I thought of a lot of people the one thing that everybody talked about at that time was his influence on the team, what it was, his character on training, what he brought in terms of maturity. I think there's maybe an argument to suggest that actually, from a goalkeeping standard point of view, it might be worth considering him after he's got his coaching certs to come back and actually do something for us there. I think he would bring something in terms of a managerial, a coaching role. So
He's not going to do it.
He doesn't want to.
He's not.
Well,
He's got no intention. He's got no intention of doing coaching badges. So, rumor has it he's accepted a post to be an ambassador at City. Sounds like he would do that same kind of gig for us, but he doesn't want to do. He's got no interest in coaching or management. So, he'll be. But the point about leadership is absolutely valid. He will be a big loss to the dressing room, and he will fundamentally change the dynamic in the dressing room because he is a natural leader. And I get the impression that some of them lead by example, and are maybe a bit quieter. But I would bet my bottom dollar that he's a vocal leader. You can tell just how he's pumped up after games and stuff that he'd be. I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the loudest player voices in that dressing room. I know Greg Taylor's a big personality in there as well. But yeah, you expect Carl was, he's probably not the loudest, but will lead by example. And CCV's pretty quiet, as we know. Again, he would lead by example. But yeah, we've got a job to fill the keeper spot, obviously. But I think we've also got a big personality that we'll lose from the dressing room. So it's important that we bring other big personalities into the squad to sort of plug that gap too.
Well, let me bring the big personality that is Stephen Kennedy in here. He says, certain teams are interested in O'Reilly. This can wait until the end of the season. Want our players fully focused. Transfer speculations will not help this. Don't think it makes any difference what we talk about, to be honest. But yes, we want them to be fully focused. So getting back to the transfer speculation surrounding Matt O'Reilly. Inter Milan. On the last show, Ian was suggesting that O'Reilly's dip in form means Atletico won't be back for him. As if clubs don't understand that players' form can rise and drop. Anyway, that was Ian's point. I didn't agree, and I still feel there'll be a number of high-priced big club offers for him in the summer. And now we have Corriere dello Sport saying that Inter Milan are keen on him. And I can see him in an interstrip. Can you visualize him wearing an interstrip and sending the Italian ladies wild, Kaiser?
He's a very handsome man. Yeah, I wouldn't get a picture standing beside him anyway, that's for sure. I met him outside Ibrox and I refused. I was like, nope, no chance. Yeah, definitely. Everyone knows that class is permanent and form is temporary. Everyone knows that. That's one of the oldest sayings in the book. So for me, I think more so brought it home to Matt was the possibility that he would be left out of the Denmark squad going to the Euros, something that he'd earned for his performances early in the season, that call-up, that inclusion in the squad, and barring an injury to another player, he wouldn't have been going. So a player picked up an injury and he found himself included, but it was news to him that he would not have been included, but it was not news to any of us. We seen his dip in form. So I can understand Ian's point when he says maybe Atletico won't be back in for him, given his dip in form. But at the end of the day, of course, they'll still approach. If they think they can approach and steal him away, a player of his quality, with his age, with his ceiling, you know what I mean? Or lack of a ceiling, so may it be. I think they would definitely come in. Definitely be a raft of offers. But like most of the fans say, it's all about this building in right now, innit? And that you need to talk about what you need to talk about. You need to talk about what's on offer. You know what I mean?
And of course, things up. We have to cherish the moment, because it's likely we're entering the last few appearances of Matt O'Reilly for Celtic. It's been a real pleasure having him in the hoops.
Yeah. Before I came on the show, I did a little just kind of troll around to get some stats on him. And the reason why I said the 15 million is, and I knew that would get a reaction because people were like 20 million, 25. I found a site called Fot Mob. So I don't know about anybody else, but I find football statistics particularly difficult to read and interpret and understand what is it that they mean to me in terms of how do I read this player. But this Fot Mob, for some reason, has some actual nice visual graphics, and you can actually see where his chances come from. And he's got one in terms of players' traits, stats compared to other midfielders. So his touch is 94%, 98% chances created, shots 96, etc., compared to other midfielders. So your big football teams will have stats, will have way richer information over a period. So a slight dip in form towards the end of a long Scottish football season won't be the thing that they're referring to. I'm sure they've got statisticians and data analysts and data scientists looking across this stuff. But that FOTMO was actually quite interesting, although I disagree with a 15 million for sure. I think it will be more than that.
And David, Moneyball.
Moneyball. I don't understand. I just find it very difficult to read the way in which they're presented. The football, in particular, football stats. I don't quite understand what they tell me.
Like I enjoy when I understand they give a representation of a performance via stats, right? We all understand that. I like it when someone like Mahesh comes in. He seems to have an awareness and a knowledge of it. Or like Alan and stuff that I've seen on Axel a few times. So I can't remember, the Celtic Exchange or something I think he's from. And he does the numbers or the breakdown or something, I think it is. So sorry. Yeah, the huddle breakdown. So like I enjoy it when it's presented and somebody has digested the facts and then regurgitated them for me. You know what I mean? I'm very much spoon-fed them that way.
Yeah.
Well, hail, Matt O'Reilly. So I think it's about time we maybe blew off a dusty old record that we have in the back cupboard there for Matt O'Reilly. Shall we do that for a laugh?
Ooh, he's gorgeous. He's a dent, but his name is Irish. He's got game, lapses and ashes. It's a thrill to see the silky skills of our Matt O'Reilly. Of Matt O'Reilly. Oh, Matt O'Reilly. Oh, Matt O'Reilly. He's gorgeous.
Yeah, he's gorgeous. All right, let's move on from that. Let's
go
to
Paul. Just imagine my dad bod beside that in a picture. I don't need them look even better.
Are we coming to me about Matt O'Reilly again, or are we moving on?
No, we're moving on. You'll be glad to hear. Unless you've got something you want to say.
I was just going to say, there's a really good interview with Matt O'Reilly that went out earlier this week where he was talking about how the players, fans might get nervous at this time of year and maybe don't want it to be this tight. And, him and the team and the squad, and you can see Brendanrodgers is really up for it, and they're sort of thriving in this environment. So I thought that was a really positive. Like, obviously we know Rodgers likes it. He's obviously come up with it. This is when we come alive stuff. But it's great to see that the players are relishing it as well. So that was cool. Another thing he talked about, he'd spoken with Joe Hart about, are there many other clubs as big as Celtic, and any much experiences like Celtic? And Joe Hart, who's obviously played for England and City and in other countries, basically went, nah, not really. This is kind of right up there. So I doubt that's enough to keep him for another season, but I thought it was interesting that he was seeking counsel from more experienced players. And it's just a good interview. I think he's always good to listen to. He doesn't just trot out your generic answers that most footballers do. He's clearly intelligent, articulate, thoughtful, and he answers questions pretty honestly. So if you haven't seen that interview, check it out. It's really good.
And good looking.
He's one of the few that
I kind of hate him
because he's good at everything.
Yeah,
we are a rare breed.
All right, well, let's move it on.
Yeah.
I was going to ask.
Been one of them, David.
It is. If only.
It's a tough gig, but I wear it lightly. Sorry, Gaff, carry on.
Speaking of tough things, was it tough on Brendan? Was it a snub, David, that he wasn't nominated in Manager of the Year?
No. I've got my 10 reasons. I'm going to read them to you.
Oh, jeez, he's come prepared.
I have come prepared. Number one,
he's done his homework.
I did. 3 players under the bus. Erratic comments. Lost a 12-goal lead. Players regress. Players injury. Game management keeps losing goals in the last few minutes. Unable to pick a starting team. Didn't manage the January transfer window. Other teams know what he'll do. Come prepared. And the kit man, because actually the kit man issue actually really bothered me.
Right. Well, I can't argue with any of those, apart from maybe the last one. The kit man
that bothered
issue
me.
Bothered you. I mean, it's just before a penalty shootout, and You know, he wants the message to be singular and unified, and doesn't want anyone getting in anybody's head or telling him where he should put it, which way the keeper often goes. He could have been saying any of that sort of stuff. Well, what's he doing? Getting in the player's ears.
Too aggressive to go in and kind of like humiliate a guy like that. You could have just said, right, and bring in
Listen,
the guy.
David, you know you're a good fella, but you need to know your place, all right? So, shut the front door.
Down.
That's right, exactly.
I
So,
thought that
no,
was a
I
bit
just-
funny that he said that. He has to know his place. That wasn't exactly
find- yeah.
softening it, was it?
No, I just
I thought that
I
was
find the
appropriate.
arrogance and stuff. No,
It wasn't great, that answer, I
No.
thought.
I thought
bothered
that
me.
was appropriate. He does need to know his place. He's the kit guy. What was he doing? Assessing his strip? Was he going to tell him how, like, tuck your short, tuck your top in your shorts?
Pull your
No,
socks.
no, I mean, but get the way stupid. Let the coach do the coaching. That's what he's paid the big bucks for. You know what I mean? Sit yourself, pipe down, pedal. Go and sit down over there on the bench. You know what I mean? You said it
He
yourself.
could have said
Ross, you
something
could have been
like,
saying.
everybody needs to know, when to step forward and when to step back or something. But having to know your place, I thought was a bit...
Did they show him the Gucci belt? Did
What
they-
is his place? What does that mean? There's an embedded arrogance to that I just don't like.
exactly.
John Clements makes a good point.
See, John Clements made a good point.
Mhm.
This one?
Mm.
Uh-huh.
He was the kit man, and yeah, he wouldn't have stepped over that one.
Yeah, but those two things can be true at the same time, right? Rodgers can be arrogant and deal with people inappropriately, and John Clark wouldn't have done that. Two things they can be true. I just don't.
Mhm.
Again, doesn't negate that I don't like Brendan Rodgers' approach.
No, that's
See,
an
I
excellent
saw
point,
this
that.
from our friend Celtic Nation. Not too many coaches could have gotten through the long-term injuries we've had with key players and an uninspiring transfer window, and yet still be in the box seat for the league title. I think that Rodgers has been exceptional this season. Is there anyone here who's prepared to agree with that?
Me, I'm prepared to agree with that.
Okay.
I am. I don't think it's Brendan Rodgers' job to keep players fit. I think that's due to the fitness staff and the physical conditioning staff at Lennoxtown. It's their job to keep players fit and at the peak of their game. Dietitians or whatever, I would imagine. I know I would want chefs in there preparing meals, tailored diets to each player, depending on what you were looking for and how they performed. It's not Brendan's job to keep players fit. It's Brendan's job to coach the team. You know what I mean? It's his job to get the wins, and he's been doing it. He's been ticking the boxes. Okay, he's not been box office Brendan. It's not him smiling and winning everything and brushing all competition aside. But when he's had to roll his sleeves up and dig in, then that's exactly, as he says himself, that's when we come alive. I'm delighted for it.
Paul, you want to give us your tuppence on Brendan for this season?
I sort of land somewhere in the middle. I agree with Kaiser and Celtic Nation. It's easy to brush that under the carpet, but there are, like I touched on earlier about the players that have contributed the most just because they've played the most. Like, we've been so stripped of key players for so long. It is kind of incredible. We're still hanging on in. Well, not just hanging on in there. We're in the box seat. We're right there. So he's not been without fault, of course, but yeah, to have navigated us to this point is pretty impressive in the circumstances. And Kaiser's right about the other roles, and you also put the board in that position as well. He's been badly let down in the transfer market twice. Now, I think a lot of the signings that came in the summer, like overtreading old ground for too long, most of them weren't his picks. They were already coming. And I think we didn't really see many in January because he wasn't overly impressed with what was put in front of him. And then we know that Lowell Jr. got his jotters. So it'd be interesting to see, again, we're jumping forward. It'd be interesting to see what the next transfer window looks like, because I think he'll have his mucky paws all over that. And that will be a more fairer reflection. So if we come out of that poorly, then maybe you can point the finger at him, but I don't think so up until this point. So I think he's done pretty well in the circumstances, to be honest.
I think that's the reason why Mark Lawwell's head's rolling, why he's losing his job. I think, no disrespect to Ange Postecoglou, right, because I thought he was fantastic while he was at the club, but he certainly said he was staying and told the board right up until Cup Day. I was there, I seen him walk around the stadium, told the board he was staying before he ushered himself off to Tottenham. He knew he was going. You know what I mean? We didn't know, but he knew he was going. You know what I mean, Gav? He was asked by the board to earmark players for next season. So obviously Lowell Jr. jumped on those players, not realising that Ange had already cashed his ticket to go down south. And why would he give us players that he might want access to himself when he's at Tottenham? You know what I mean? Why would they spoon feed us good players like he had been doing with Real Hatate? So maybe he just pumped out a couple of names, and obviously the recruitment team thought they would ignore Brendan and just bring in these players, thought they were going to be big hits. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, a few of them have fell flat.
I think the other thing to say about the list for Manager of the Year is it's ridiculously early. Like, he could win a double and then they look absolutely daft because he's nowhere near it. But on the current side of things, you probably wouldn't put him in. You know, McInnes has probably got them punching above their weight. Tory Docherty's done a fantastic job, but John McGlynn is probably the top candidate in there. I think Falkirk are unbeaten or pretty close to it. So, they've picked who they've picked. But if Rodgers guides us to a double, it looks pretty daft that they've done it this early.
And even Player of the Year awards.
But these awards who gives a shit about these awards? Excuse my language, but who gives
we're going to talk about them for the next 5 minutes, so I'm hoping everyone gets it.
Well, you've got my tuppence already.
Well, I was going to say, you're talking about how the Manager of the Year award is ill-timed. So is Player of the Year awards. No better representation of that than Rangers having theirs. And they gave an achievement award, whatever that means, to the recently dropped handball expert and critic of Rangers youth players, Connor Goldson.
Connor Golden Glove Goldson.
Who's probably at his lowest ebb ever as a Rangers player, and there he is getting an award. It's ludicrous, isn't it?
What was the award for?
That was an achievement award. I mean, aren't all awards achievement awards? Yeah.
One question. Do they have their awards at this time every year, or have they brought them forward to achieve some result for themselves? Is it this time every year for them?
I mean, no one knows that answer. I don't know.
Well, I was just, well, is it that they're
interesting to know.
Well, it might be that, because I was thinking that maybe what they've actually done is just putting people in the shop window, because the news sound bites, Player of the Year, whatever stuff might get someone's attention somewhere. Who knows?
It kind of sounds like one of those lifetime contributions to music that Diana Ross gets after like her full career. You know what I mean? You're like, okay.
Well, they're just an odd club anyway. That they kind of go against the grain and everything and against everybody else. Player of the Year, etc., has to be at the end of a season, does it not, or whenever? It's just odd, like them.
What was also odd was the top goal scorer award, which went to Tav Penn, and then that gave rise to this rather humorous thing.
The top goal scorer award for the men's team this evening. How do you feel to have grabbed that tonight?
Yeah, it's obviously I enjoy scoring goals, and like I said on stage, it comes down to my teammates winning penalties for us.
Can you say that again, just the way you said it?
It comes down to my teammates winning penalties for us.
Just the same way.
It comes down to my teammates winning penalties for us.
Michael McCahill there with an excellent tweet. That was funny, wasn't it? Yeah. Saying the quiet things out loud.
Reading between the lines, as it were.
Okay, well, we're just going to not leave this behind just yet, because Hearts also had their awards, and I was doing lots of research, obviously for this show, for the viewers, so I thought you might be interested to see some picks that I saved from Hearts. Well, one pick from Hearts Player of the Year awards, and then you'll see the rabbit hole that this sent me down.
Jesus.
Then.
That's
in the middle.
Heart coach in the middle.
Hearts
the female coach.
Eva Olid.
Yeah.
Who is she?
She's the coach of the Hearts women's team.
Yeah.
And so obviously this sent me on a little bit more research so I could firm up my knowledge of all aspects of our next opponents.
Ridiculous.
Here's
Come
some more
on.
pictures of Ava. She's very talented.
Yes.
She's
Incredibly.
Spanish, and she revolutionized the club, achieved a 4th place finish. She's also been described as very intriguing in that she has looked to combine different aspects of traditional tactics from Spain, the USA, and Scotland, where she has coached during her career, to come up with her own identity. So
Excellent.
that's very interesting, isn't it? Eva Olid.
Not just a pretty face.
Now, come on. To be fair, we did objectify Matt O'Reilly earlier, purely in terms of his look, so nobody can accuse us of
We did
sexism.
also say he was intelligent and, you know what I mean? We gave him a couple other compliments. And her
I assume
footballing
she's intelligent as well.
Yes.
She must be.
Multilingual,
to
obviously.
merge in those football philosophies. So
Yes,
definitely.
Back in 5. Somebody's going for a cold shower.
I'm glad you didn't link that section back to the title of this show, Gav.
Like you just have.
Well,
boy.
Well, I was going to link the title of the show to me and Dan doing the watch along, or more of the drink along, and Dan will be the American Pie.
Yes, that's right. You and Dano are doing a watch along for the game on Saturday, so watch out for that, everyone. That should be fun. We're putting 2 of our wildest cards together.
It's not too late, Gav. It's actually not too late. You do have
I'm just relinquishing
to think
control
about
and
it.
saying, look, go for it. What
Just
else?
giving the keys and being like, it's a gaff party
late.
for Kaiser and
Not too
Dano.
late.
It's a gaff.
Who saw this? Martin O'Neill slams Ange Postecoglou's lack of plan B and set piece focus at Spurs on TalkSport.
He actually didn't, if you watch the
Didn't
interview.
Didn't at all.
It's not like it's another example of the headline completely being different from the detail. In fact, he very carefully worded how he responded to the questions around a possible lack of plan B. Yeah, I watched a chunk of because you put it on the run sheet, I had to go looking for it. But there's about an 18-minute clip on it, and I watched about 10 minutes of that, which, well, it's 80 minutes of the chat, and the first 10 minutes cover the Ange stuff. Basically somebody phoned into TalkSport, a Spurs fan, up electric, slating Ange, no plan B. We shouldn't be getting, we shouldn't have dropped as many points as we have in the second half of the season, blah, 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 blah. And Simon Jordan gleefully jumped on that bandwagon and tried to pin Martin into a position where he would say there was no plan B. And basically O'Neill said, well, what he basically said along the lines of what is a plan? Like, what is a plan B? Is a plan B is when you change things, changing things mid game, bringing on subs, etc. is as much of a plan B as anything else. If those subs don't work, then you can be accused of not having a plan B.
It wasn't a great answer, I thought.
Well, he also went on to say that he thinks over time.
Yes. In other words, he will develop that. But he was basically agreeing that Ange doesn't really have a plan B. And that's something a lot of people said, including I said, whenever he went to England, was that against better players and better coaches, his lack of tactical flexibility might be a bit of a problem for him.
Well, it could come unstuck. But I think Spurs fans for more than half the season have been delighted to take the rough with the smooth because of the quality of the football it's played. And ultimately, that's what anyone who watches the Ange team enjoys it. And you know that you're going to be mostly entertained and you'll mostly win games and you'll mostly score goals, but there will be times when you'll be exposed, especially at that kind of level. But I would say if you watched that first half, which I did before flicking across to the real game, they were pretty unlucky to be down 3-0 at half-time. Now, it's absolutely possible that can happen because of the way they play. But they had a really good goal, chopped off by, again, millimetres on VAR. From that chop off, they had a pretty reasonable shout for a penalty in this day and age waved away. And from that incident, they scored Sanya goal on the break, and then the set piece thing is valid because he had that issue with us, and they've lost a couple of goals at set pieces as well. But even accounting for all that, they had the better of the play in the first half. If you look at the score, it looked like they've got pumped, but they were pretty unlucky to be 3-0 down at halftime.
Well, I would like to back Martin O'Neill because I didn't like the way Ange looked in his eyes, and Martin O'Neill's an absolute legend and a highly intelligent man. Didn't like the way Ange looked in his eyes and didn't agree to stay at the club. Lied right to his face. So Martin O'Neill can say whatever he wants about Ange. Ange can get one of them right in about him. All right. You know what I mean? I know what your plan B is. They plan A better. I loved Ange's footballing philosophy, right? I loved that a master of one trade is better than a jack of all trades. You know what I mean? Being fixated and dedicated to that singular plan. And sure, as you said, Paul, they were down 3-0 at half time. I'm sure if you'd have asked any Tottenham fan, the same if you'd have asked any Celtic fan when Ange was here and we were down 3-0 at half time, do you see a way back into this game? Every one of them would have said yes, because that is the style of football that's played. So just to highlight that, but I agree. I back Martin O'Neill to the ends of the off. Ange can.
I guess the point is O'Neill didn't slate him, and he actually treaded very carefully and was very respectful. And he was trying, in classic Jim White and Simon Jordan tabloid nonsense, tried to pin him to a position to criticize him, and he didn't take the bait because he's smarter than them, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move it on then to goalkeeper speculation. Celtic have been linked to possibly a dozen goalkeepers. Loads of names have been mentioned. There's nothing concrete on any of them. Do we have more respect for our viewers than to spend too long on this topic, David?
I hope so.
So I went through the 13 names that I was able to find beforehand, and I'm not going to read them all out and bore you
13
again.
reasons
right?
why.
And
I teed it up for you to say move on.
And I don't care what the comments are saying. I don't care what you guys are. I'm writing my 10 points on Brendanrodgers. One of the things that actually interested me more about the names was that the goalkeeper range age names are between 26 and 32. So, and a few of them going towards that later. And I know for a goalkeeper, it's less important, but it still means that we are in that sort of looking for bargain kind of coming to end of career. A lot of the features of each of the goalkeepers that we are in is that they've had fallouts. They've been loaned out. They've been getting no game time. So the issue for me in this is it again that the rarity of a goalkeeper, top class, means we won't pay the monies. Monies seem to range between 1.5 and sort of 4 or 5 million on a goalkeeper. I'm not sure. But it's that common trait that I saw in all of the names that was most concerning for me.
It's like you need to look at that age range. If that is the age range that we're looking at, then Celtic are not going to spend serious money on a replacement goalkeeper. If it was younger, then higher fees, people discussing, you would understand. But like some of these players have got quite high fees given their advanced stage. I know they're still in the highlight of their career, some would say, for a goalkeeper. They just instantly hold up Buffon, and because he played until he was 136, you know what I mean? They just hold him as a stellar example. Not every goalkeeper lasts until his 40s, you know what I mean? Not every goalkeeper has that longevity.
Yeah. And Kaiser, I wasn't so worried about the age thing. It was the it was the trait that these guys had been loaned out or hadn't been playing. That was the kind of biggest issue for it. A lot of them just weren't playing for their main club.
Yeah, so looking to revitalise their career, you know what I mean? I've seen Fraser Forster as well, waxing lyrically about Celtic, and that was one of the names that always comes up. It's like Jordan Larson, when a transfer window opens, it's one of those names that always does the rounds. So I did see the interview with Fraser Forster on another podcast where he was waxing lyrically about his time at Celtic and how much he loves the club.
Yeah, I saw that today.
So another name that's going to come back into the fray and be mentioned again, you know what I mean? Of course, Joe Hart says he's retiring, so everyone knows Celtic are in the market for a keeper.
Yeah.
So immediately puts the price up. Well, I think we're in the market for two keepers, if I'm being brutally honest. You know, we touched on Ben Siegrist a little bit last week with the issues in his private life, but I think his missus is in Australia. He's going to want to be, if not down here, then certainly closer. And Scott Bain's not suitable to be second choice. He's okay around the dressing room. He's okay as a third, as an absolute backup. But you need two. We need a first pick and we need a decent backup. And some of the names concern me. Some of the names are interesting. Like Begovic, for example, at 36, he's the same age as Joe Hart. Do you know what I mean? Like you can forget about that. The problem is a big high profile role like this. Agents will be all over it. They'll be, they'll chuck every name in the hat in the mix because they know we need a keeper. It's pretty obvious that's something that it's not like there's speculation about it. We need a keeper. There you go, spot on. Yeah. The one, and I don't know a lot about him. I've not done a lot of research. And the one that interests me is the Turkish keeper. That I think he's a Turkish international goalkeeper. I can't remember which of the 2 or 3 big clubs he's with, but he's definitely leaving. He'd be apparently 6 to 7 million. Now, David said we won't spend 4 or 5. We won't spend 4 or 5. We spent 5 on Barkis. It was an absolute disaster. That doesn't mean we don't do it again. If there's a keeper in their mid to late 20s and they're at the level, we should be paying 6, 7, 8 million for him, because that's the level we've proven that's the level you need to get a quality player in. So, and it's an absolute crucial position. So for me, the other thing about the goalkeeper is Celtic's quite unique in that you'll hardly ever see the ball and then you're asked to make a save, and that might be a game-winning save. So there's a certain mentality that comes with that, and that's not necessarily easy to scout either. So yeah.
But on that point, and of the names mentioned, the issue that I've got is exactly what you're highlighting. Is we buy wingers, and that's what we do for about 1.2 million, and that's all we do, Paul. We don't. I mean, yeah, we've done it once. Have we got over that? And are we going to spend that money? Something in our goalkeeper and other positions has to change significantly for the summer.
Right, the summer is the key word. I honestly didn't think we were going to talk about goalkeepers at all there. I had no intention of doing so, but we managed to drill it out there for a good 7 minutes or something. We'll talk all about all this stuff in the summer, for sure, when there's no games going. But on to more important matters. Is your boiler acting up? Thinking of replacing it? Well, we can't help, I'm afraid. We don't have any completely irrelevant third-party corporate overlords here at A Celtic World. Yeah. If that's something you appreciate, then maybe you ought to tickle the like button. Give a wee thumb up. I never asked for likes. Give a wee thumb up. Or in fact, subscribe if you haven't already. Here, Kaiser, you know about these things. One thing I was thinking about is that probably loads of people watch YouTube without having a YouTube sign-in. Mm-hmm. And you can't subscribe without a sign-in. So maybe they don't even know how, or they've just always avoided it. Is it worth spelling out how to sign in, get a YouTube sign-in, and then subscribe, or is that spoon-feeding?
A lot of people would use Android devices, right? So they'll know all about Google Play and Google Store and signing in with Google and creating a YouTube account. Lots of people who use iPhones and stuff may not, but it is totally free. You just go to the top, create a YouTube account. It takes seconds. Pop in, smash subscribe. You know what I mean? I'm needing a boiler and a bush trim day. Oh, yeah.
Also, like Craig Young, he's obviously got a YouTube account, or like he's signed in, because that's how you participate in the chat. You can't participate if you don't have a YouTube sign in. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely worth doing. And then you can, all the things you subscribe to appear on the left side of your screen, and it turns YouTube into your own. What's the word I want to use? Begins with a C. When you gather together all the things you want.
Collective?
No.
I can think of something that starts with a C. Mm-hmm. Let's move on.
Community.
It's going to come to me. It's going to come to me halfway through somebody else's answer.
Jesus, let's go.
Let's preview the Hearts game. We can move 6 points clear. 6 points ahead of Rangers. Home clash against Kilmarnock on Sunday. Okay, so let's talk about who do we want to see playing in this game. I saw Andy Walker, everyone's favourite ex-Celt, and quite a few other people suggesting this tactical tweak, saying that Maeda should reclaim his place in place of Kuhn and put him on one side, Maeda on one side, and James Forrest on the other. David, you take that. Is that what you think is going to happen?
I don't know. Is Maeda, is he actually fit? Is he going to be able to play?
Who knows?
We won't find out until tomorrow, David. There'll be an interview with
curate,
Brendan.
curate was the word. Curate. You can curate your YouTube experience. Everyone's suggesting words in the comments, beginning with C. It was curate. Sorry, David. Carry on.
No. Bring them in. So I don't know if Maeda's actually going to be available. I don't mind a mix-up in I don't mind the suggestion of a mix-up, but can we actually manage to get through the game doing something that we haven't done all season? Because the issue that I have at the moment is that Brendan, well, one of my 10 reasons was Brendan's predictability of playing, how everybody would play against us. My kind of feel about this is don't change anything because we seem somehow to be able to scrape through and win. I think there's a mindset with the players at the moment to be able to get through. That's what I'm banking on. But it's not about changing up the team, changing up the tactics, or anything else. It's just the sheer will to win that I'm reliant on. Others may have a different view, but that's where I'm at.
Guys, are you any strong views on lineup?
I think we'll go out to play the same team that started there at the weekend against Dundee. And I think Maeda will be coming in the second half, maybe featuring. I wouldn't move James Forrest because he's on fire and in form right now. Why would you alter that? Why would you take someone who's in form and move his position to the other side? Kuna's doing okay on the right-hand side. Admittedly, Yang has been struggling, but Kun seems to be knocking the ball on and crossing it and supplying a couple of good shots at the weekend. Sometimes he seems fearful to run at a man and take a man on. Hopefully that confidence continues to grow and we reap the benefits of that. You need to keep James Forrest on the left, and of course, I'll be delighted to see Maeda being back so soon because I'd love him to be there for playing against the Sevcovians. As you've seen there, Tav Penn getting a special award for scoring the most goals as a defender. You know what I mean? And Maeda negates his threat, pins him back, and would be delighted if Maeda can make that game. So as much time as you can get in his legs, but at the same time, this may be not the game to be mincing around and messing around with players and not quite sharp enough and not quite fit enough. I think this is going to be really a hard-fought game.
Tactically speaking, Paul, they've done a number on us a couple of times this season. How do we avoid that happening again?
Well, it's been as much our mistakes as them being tactically smart. I think what they've done is they've had a bit of a go, which a lot of teams don't bother doing. I went back and looked at the game in December, and obviously the more recent one at Tynecastle. I was surprised to see in both of those games. I can't remember individual matches to the detail I used to when I was a kid. I was surprised to see that in both games, our first pick, or what we consider, or what has been majority our first pick back five, started both those games. So CCV was available for both those games. Scales obviously started both of them.
Sorry, the people in the comments. It's just going mental now with all the C words.
That's absolutely
It's hard
fine.
to concentrate on what we're trying to say.
Yeah, that's fine.
Look at the state of David.
I was just surprised.
He's on mute because he didn't want to people in his
I'm done.
Jesus. So I'll carry on. You can go back on mute. I was just surprised that we had that strong a defensive lineup in theory, and we played how we did. The game at Tynecastle comes off the rails with the Yang decision, and then it's compounded with the Iwata penalty, which when the SFA or the referees group have marked their own homework this week, they've gone, oh, maybe that shouldn't have been a penalty, but apparently neither should he. So all of that reviewing their own stuff is just a nonsense as far as I'm concerned. we're not going to spend any time on it. Look, terrible. Once again, terrible back. So looking back to December, the opening goal after 15 minutes, Shanklin's got a free header at the back post, not dissimilar to the 2 Aberdeen goals we've just seen in the Cup the other week. Scales was marking Alistair Johnston at that and wrestling with him, and Shanklin's just peeled off the back and bulleted one in the back post. So there's key failings in that, and then there's a soft foul. We give away a soft foul on the edge of the box, and Kingsley hits a brilliant free kick, and and from there we've got a whole world to do. Interestingly, like Mikey Johnson started that December game as David Turnbull. So we've got a stronger squad and a much stronger bench. So I think it's less about what they do and more about how we front up. I expect the same team. I agree with the guys. I expect the same team to start. Now, I have some concerns about that because Kuhn dropped out of the game significantly after a bright start. I'm just ploughing on and trying to be vaguely professional. And then McGregor's a worry for me because he's clearly still not fit. This is just a shambles. It's like being back in primary school. McGregor's clearly not fit. I think he will start, but there's a real balancing act now between does he play to try and get more match fit? And I thought it was a fitness issue, but in terms of match sharpness. But for me, I now start to think that that's maybe not the case, that he's nursing the injury through and it's a set of, he can only push himself to a set level. Now, if that's the case, do you persist with him, knowing that you can only get 45 to 60 minutes and it might not be that, it might not be that effective? Or do you just park him for a bit and put Tomoki Iwata back in because he's been really pretty solid when he has played? So for me, the question marks are the wide positions. I don't think Maeda will start. The guy's gone from being out from the season to, some sort of Lazarus recovery. So I think the best we can expect for him is the bench. But I also wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of mind games and he doesn't even make the bench. We'll see.
Yeah.
Are we going to see just
of C words in the chat? This is what people are missing out on, Gav. You know what I mean? When they're not got their YouTube account.
This will translate brilliantly when we go out as a podcast.
I've covered up the comments and the sight of David. I don't want to see either of those two things because I'm incapable of carrying on when those happen. So I'm going to ask Kaiser, who I also can't see now, are we just going to see a gazillion balls fired to the back post by Hart?
Yeah. Yes, of course.
No.
Paul highlighted it there himself. He says Shaglin just nipped in at the back post and bulleted a header in last time we played. I don't know if that was the last time we played or the game before.
No,
David's
last time at home. Last time at home.
Yes. So again, we've seen Aberdeen pursue that tactic in the cup, targeting the back post. Definitely, that's something we're going to see. You know what I mean? We're under no illusion what this game is going to entail. It's going to be hard work. Like, that's why I'm sure everyone's like, let's just get behind the team and give it we're all as a supporter group, as a fan group, and feel that electric atmosphere building up. But yeah, I don't think they'll be as one-dimensional just to go route one and then hit that back post all the time. But if it's not broke, don't fix it. And Celtic have certainly shown no sign of fixing it. So it's going to be something that is going to need to be watched. I mean, like, a few of those crosses come in, right? I know Liam Scales is caught underneath the ball. Silly place to be, right? But it happens. See, even if you're not going to win the ball, go up for the header. The guy behind you, you're going to unsight him. You know what I mean? You're going to make him think about what if you get a touch. Do something, you know what I mean? Don't just stand there and watch it drift over your head. Like, the music just starts playing, you know what I mean? It's like that TV show with the guy with the specs. It's like dun 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 da 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 da. Every time the cross comes in.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's another
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
That's the guy with the specs. Well done. You did well to get it from that, Paul.
I knew where he was going with it.
David, if you're capable of speech, can we ask?
I've stopped looking at the comments. I just stopped. I can't.
Right.
Well, you can put private chat on and that'll block him.
What's the question?
What are you expecting from Oh, that's a good idea. What are you expecting from the atmosphere at Celtic Park?
Electric. An absolute must-win. Nothing, anything other than a win. Kaiser was saying about it earlier, I think just before we came live. It is the most important game probably of our season so far outside of any of the derbies. They almost seem insignificant. I think the sort of excitement between the fans, even as we started tonight from the comment section, everybody knows that we need to go in there. So it's going to be rock and roll. It's going to be incredible. I mean, I'm going to do the watch along anyway, just to watch the watch along, just for that extra vibe. So, and anybody else here, as long as you stop as long as they cut out all this nonsense, because I can't handle it. So, yes,
there'll be more of that.
Okay, well, it's very exciting. Are we going to do predictions for a laugh, David?
2-1.
That's going to be a popular prediction, I suspect. Kaiser?
Yeah, 3-0 to us. I'm going confidence. Ooh. I'm ringing in the confidence.
Yeah. Paul?
Well, my first prediction is it's going to be stressful for me because I'm at a gig on Saturday night. So I'm fair chance that I will miss the start of the kickoff. I'm seeing one of my favourite bands that I've never seen live, Everything, in a joint bill with the Vaccines. So I imagine the 10 p.m. kickoff here, the bands will still be on stage probably till about 11. So I will probably miss the first half. So I'll be just checking in on the score. And then I'll probably be watching the start of the second half and then an Uber before getting home to watch the rest of it. But I'm going to go 3-1. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet against them. Shankland will find a chance from somewhere and probably get one. But I think that we will be up for it enough and the crowd will be, I agree with the guys, the crowd will be bang up for it. 3 o'clock, home game, probably a full house. A bit of time to get a few ales in beforehand, which always encourages a little bit of more lively contribution. So yeah, I think it'll be a good, a decent performance and hopefully a decent result as well.
Yeah, 2-1 or 3-1, I reckon it's probably fair enough. I've just opened up the comments again, and
could even be 3-2. Like it could be, it could be one of those. It could be like.
All right, let's move it on then to our Celtic social media choices. Not sure whose this was, can't recall.
Mine.
Go for it.
Well, yeah, just Daniel Fergus McGrain was 74 yesterday. And interestingly for me, I saw my first live Celtic game as a small kid was his very last game for Celtic in a rather inauspicious 1-0 defeat at Tynecastle at the end of the season. I think it was probably the 86-87 season, possibly the 85-86 season, one of the two. But yeah, I obviously didn't really get to see him in his pomp, but I've obviously read and seen the footage and genuine world-class fullback. And I think it's I think that the comment there said world-class right back and a pretty good left back. And he was actually playing left back towards the end of his career. And I actually thought he was a left back until I did it as a little kid. I thought he was a left back, but then we realised that he was actually a right back. So it makes his performances even more impressive because he was playing on the wrong side. But yeah, great. So obviously everybody knows the story. Rangers had a chance. They thought he was a Rangers fan growing up. They thought he was a Catholic, so they passed on him, and the rest is history. But yeah, happy birthday to Danny McGrain, Celtic legend.
He was one of the first players that I sort of remember, and he stood out to me because he was like a man among boys, you know. He
had the beard, I think the beard and the grey hair, it was.
But the other players looked like kind of grown-up lads, you know. But he was like a proper man always, wasn't he? What is it about? Was it just because he had a beard at a time when nobody else had beards?
I think probably the beard, and you're a wee bit older than me, Gav, so you probably remember a bit more than I do. But he the beard, and he sort of went grey relatively early, I think. So yeah. But it's probably the manly beard.
A proper grown up.
The manly beard, I would say.
He was a proper
Gav.
grown-up player. He was a proper grown-up in his behaviour on and off the park. He's a gentleman. He had presence. He was incredible. One of our all-time greats.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if any of you have been canoeing or kayaking in your youth or perhaps in your adult years, but there's a little bit of Irish-style canoeing is my very relevant choice, social media choice this week. See what this guy does. Let me make that full screen. This is an Eskimo roll, Irish style.
What a waste of a
Yep.
pint.
That was it. That was good, though, wasn't it?
He spilled half the pint, and he just drink it.
Oh, well, he did pretty well. He wasn't going to not spill any of it while... Oops. Can you hear that again?
Yeah. Bit of Blue Monday.
No. Stop.
Is that now called an Inuit roll?
Oh, yes, very probably. Is Eskimo not politically correct?
Eskimo hasn't been politically correct for about 15 years, 20 years, Gav. Come on. Inuit.
David, you wanted to talk about this?
Well, just because we were talking about some of the transfer of speculation, but Ida gets my. I think he's a player. I want him to stay, and I think 5 million. I think we should. So I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I like what I see, and I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. And he's a big, strong, capable player, and he's done well for us of anybody that's come in recently. So yeah, pay
That's
the
a
money.
tweet from at Celtic Gossip, by the way. Does anyone want to share their tuppence worth again? This divides opinion. You see some people saying, nah, we need better. He's not going to fire us forward in Europe. Now, it strikes me like he's the kind of player that if we don't go for him and then we get the usual dross that we always bloody get, we'll end up saying, why didn't we buy him? It'll be a repeat of the January transfer window where we didn't get Miovski. Before that, loads of people were saying he's not Celtic standard, that Miovski. By the time the window closed, you're like, why didn't we get Miovski?
Well, and that's still the debate, right? The debate is limited really to Ida or Miovski because, we've been linked with both. The pros for Adam Ida is that he's doing it. Yeah, he's not perfect and he's not the finished article, but he's pretty young, and he's had a big impact. He's perfectly he's perfect for a second choice and something that changes it up and gives you a different option. We saw that at Dundee. He was able to run the channels, hold it up, and he knows where the goals are. Do I think Miovski is an even better option? Potentially. Similar age, would be more money, but also maybe doesn't give. He's maybe closer to a Kyogo type player in terms of how his style is. I do agree. Ida's way further along in his development than O. I wouldn't cast O aside completely yet. I would, he's on a longish contract. I'd get him out to another Premier League team, and same as Kwon, and let's see what he's about. It's I don't know. Kwon might not make it at Celtic, but he's clearly he's clearly got the ability because he's had a good half season at St Mirren, and we've talked about this and most Celtic podcasts do. Every Celtic player that goes out on loan, as far as I'm concerned, should be going out to the Premier League because it's a double whammy. You strengthen your opposition against everyone else except for us, in the point that they can potentially take points off your rivals. So I think if it really is 5 million, and I think there was a Celtic fan media that broke that story about 2 weeks ago, and suddenly the press have jumped on it, and now it's in the media. So it's not news. This has been kicking around for at least a week or two. I think, depending on what the total budget is, it's a bit of a no-brainer to go and spend 5 million on him. You don't get much for 5 million these days. We haven't got the option to buy, but it's the same pathway we've done before. He's come on loan. He's proved himself. He can handle himself at a club like this. He's not overawed by it. Just pay the money. we're going to have a massive turnover, I think, this summer, and he'll just be one part of it. But if he's available and wants to come, and 5 is the ask, I'd pay it.
Just think some of our fans get so excited in the lead up to transfer windows, and they start, having this wish list in their own minds and getting greedy and thinking they want 8 million 10 million superstars.
We all got a bit sucked into that at the beginning of this season when we thought, about this time last year when we thought Ange was staying. We were talking about maybe the bar gets moved from 5 and 6 to 8 to 10 to 12. And that's what we would need to step it up to the next level. Now, I don't disagree with any of that discussion. That is valid, but whether the board proved they didn't want to do that.
For us.
Well, I don't see how it isn't, to be honest.
Well, because it never happens. If it never happens, it's not reality.
It doesn't happen under this board, but in terms of the club's structure and finances, we are absolutely capable of being able to buy and sell at that level. Like, it's got to be incremental, but we've talked about this before. Like teams like Benfica and Ajax didn't just start spending, 30, 40 on players and selling them for 70, 80. Like, they sell, Ajax sold Anthony to Man United for 80 million. I have no idea how they managed that, but they did it. And that's because incrementally over time, they've built up players and they've upgraded their purchase and they've sold them for double. That's got to be the model we want to do. Benfica have done a good job at it as well. But we lack ambition in the boardroom, and we lack the ability to sort of, and in the scouting, to pick a good enough player to spend 7, 8, 10 on, knowing that you can probably get 25, 30 beyond that. And we've got a problem. When a guy said it really early in the commentary when we were talking about Matt O'Reilly for 15 million, the Celtic board will have never accepted more than 25 million for a player, never asked for 25 million for a player. So we're capped at this 2025. We need the ambition to go, Matt O'Reilly's worth 30 and that's the price. And only once we break that 25 million cap, and I think O'Reilly's a good enough player to do that. He's 3 years left on his contract. Get a bidding war, see where we go. Only when we do that can we push beyond that supposed ceiling of 25 mil and actually develop players and sell them on to other leagues for a higher fee.
Absolutely. There's the bold truth there from Paul Kaiser. I think you may be muted. I was going to...
Sorry, I was just saying, I thought that was spot on for Paul there. There is times in the past where we have done it, Gav, like when we had Henrik Larsson, Chris Sutton, John Hartson, and we were building quality squads of quality players. Adam Ida, for me, I think he's been fantastic for him in. And if he is the kind of player that we can boast being our second choice striker at the level of £5 million, I think it marks well for the future. I would love to see Miovski coming into Celtic as well. I think he would challenge Kyogo for a starting place where Ida would be playing second fiddle or as a different option with his strength. I think more Miovski would be that challenging, wanting to start and pushing Kyogo. He wouldn't be able to spend half a season like on a goal drought, you know what I mean? Or not being found by the team and dropping deep and whatnot, as we've seen happening with Kyogo. But
there's a case for buying them. There's a case for buying them both, I reckon.
That's what I was about to say, Paul. I think there's a case for just buying them both.
But I think so.
And I think Gav hits the nail in the head as well. It's how ambitious are the board going to be? And Paul hit the nail in the head as well when he said Matt O'Reilly, 3 years left in his contract, 10 million a year. Does that seem like a lot of money for Matt O'Reilly? I would pay 10 million a year to have him in the team. You know what I mean? To retain him.
Ultra Wide. Sorry to interrupt, guys. Ultra Wide was making the comment that I was just about to make. Wolves paid the best part of 40 million for that clown at Rangers. If that's the going rate, and we know that the EPL overpays for players, if that's the going rate, then you can name your price for O'Reilly. And the worry for me is that that the clubs like, the Italian league is being highly tipped because they don't spend as much money as the English league. You'd ideally want it to draw an EPL club into the mix to push that price up.
Definitely.
Well, but let's not sell him early. Like if he wants to stay, great. But he's definitely got a big job to play for the next 5 games.
Kaiser.
Yeah, the coalition of the Baldies, and they're taking over the world. 3
of the biggest clubs in the Premier League will have a similar look on the touchline. Whenever the
Gav
new
put you up
Liverpool
to this,
manager
Kaiser,
comes
didn't
in.
he? Gav put you up to this. It's the Baldy Mafia.
Yeah.
Taking
I was
over.
just trying
What,
to.
what does this mean for us, Gav, though? Does that mean we all have to turn up like this also?
No.
It's
Not
not
me.
compulsory.
Just buy a swimming cap.
Just wonder, is being bald, are we getting balder as a species? I mean, or have we always had as many baldies knocking about?
What? What?
It's
There's a lot of
evolution.
bald people these days.
Gav's now saying it's evolution, David.
What?
I think we're the more evolved people, and the hirsute or the knuckle draggers.
The hirsute are knuckle draggers, are they? Dear, oh dear.
There you go.
Brilliant.
So hang on, we've gone Dickie Attenborough out the window, Penfold out the window. Can't remember all the others. Now you're an egg. Just an egg. Just an egg with some glasses on.
We'll do an Easter egg competition
need to
right
go.
at Easter. Send us your pictures of your Gav eggs.
I'm out, man.
All right, it's been a very strange show tonight. I think it's fair to say that the people in the comments have been just as entertaining as the
Monty's
people in
come
the
out with a
pod.
belt
Well,
down there as well.
they took it over. They took over the show.
Well, as we giggle our way into the night, thank you very much, one and all, for being there. Thank you to all the commenters. Been very entertaining. That we almost didn't hold it together at one stage when some of those C
Some of us
words
did.
were flying around. There's some very imaginative ones. It was a lot of fun, but at one stage I did imagine I was going to be like, those newsreaders who completely lose it and they can't get it back again. So that was good fun. Well done, everyone. You're just as important as the people on the panel, but thanks very much to the people on the panel. Paul,
Hell yeah.
thank you very much. Kaiser in Mordor.
Hell yeah. Hail.
And David in the muddy confluence of Kuala Lumpur. Until next time, we'll see you on Monday, after which we will know what happened in the Hearts game.
And the
Jeez,
watch
that's
along
this
on
Saturday.
Saturday.
Watch
The
along.
day after
Watch along.
tomorrow.
Be there.
Yes, come and watch the watch along if you're looking for some company. It's
It'll
gonna
be absolute carnage.
Yes,
Yes.
it will. Every
Yeah.
season
Kaiser,
chat, Dano
Ali,
does a shot.
Dano
Kaiser
on
and
the,
Dano.
on
Game
the
over.
whiskey. Okay, until next time, hail, hail.